Please be seated. Well, this is one of the more famous parts of the Bible, isn't it? And most of us have a name for this parable. What do you call it? The parable of the Good Samaritan. Yeah, and that's in our vocabulary. Have you ever noticed a hospital named the Good Samaritan? Or when I was in the ordination process and had to do my psych eval, I went to the Good Samaritan Counseling Center at Narden Park Church, which is just around the block here. And, it's kind of a thing, but I just want to propose that maybe we need to think of a different name, because Good Samaritan kind of implies that most Samaritans are not good, or like maybe this is the only good, right? Have you ever heard of the Good Catholic Counseling Center? No. Well, he's a good Episcopalian, So right there, when we do that, we kind of set up something. And in a way, it is in the parable, because you have two people come by the victim who has been seized upon on the road and stripped and beaten and left half dead. And you have two likely people that might come and stop and help, and they don't. They pass by on the other side. And the one who does, it's kind of always in threes, right? There's a priest, a minister, and a rabbi, right? But this is the Levite, the priest. And then the third one is very unlike either of those. It's a Samaritan, a despised people. They are enemies. It's not really a stranger in a way. They are in close quarters, but they do not get along, right? So the kind of point is that the one that you don't expect to help is the one that does. So I'm going to back up a little bit. This is in our lexicon so much. I took a little look at a book by Amy Jill Levine. Amy Jill Levine is a Jewish scholar, and she teaches New Testament. She studies our Christian Bible as a Jewish person and teaches in seminaries. And in fact, I took a class from her on the Gospel of John. And she wrote a book called The Short Stories of Jesus, which is great. It's the parables. And she has some good things to say about this, but she pointed out that, to quote her, former U.S. President George W. Bush invoked this parable in his first inaugural address. He said, "I can pledge our nation to a goal. When we see that wounded traveler on the road to Jericho, we will not pass to the other side." So we know what he's talking about, right? My mind goes immediately to this particular parable. Amy Jill Levine said that she checked with a Jewish friend of hers. She said it's a naturalized U.S. citizen who pays more attention to national and local politics than most people I know. And her friend thought the reference might have been to an accident in New York, because there is a Jericho on Long Island. So it's an assumption that we all got that reference. So the other thing that she really points out is that it's so easy for us to vilify that priest and that Levite. And there's all kinds of things you may have heard about purity laws and coming into contact with a corpse, or all kinds of reasons that they may have passed the way. And she said, really, no. They're a foil. You need a one thing and another thing, and now here's the point when you're telling the story, right? And so they are the people who we thought would have helped, and they didn't. It just kind of sets up so we understand what the Samaritan did. And then she also, just to tell you one more thing from her piece, she quoted Martin Luther King, because he preached on this, and he said, "I'm going to tell you what my imagination tells me. It's possible these men were afraid." The priest and the Levite were afraid. And so the question that the priest and the Levite asked was, if I stop to help this man, what will happen to me? But then the Good Samaritan came by and he reversed the question. He said, if I don't stop to help this man, what will happen to him? If I don't stop to help him, what will happen to him? And I think there's a lot in our world, there's a lot of current things in our world where we are, some of us, afraid of people who are not like us or don't look like us. And I think this parable is timely to say we are all neighbors, that we are to care for one another. And it doesn't matter if we're the same family, if we're the same connection, we are neighbors. Jesus is answering the question, who is my neighbor? So the thing is, at the end of the time, when Jesus has finished telling the story, he says to the person who posed the question to begin with, he says, it's interesting because he doesn't say, you expect him to say, who, because the question is, who is my neighbor? In other words, who do I have to take care of? So who was the Samaritan's neighbor, right? And the answer would be the man he took care of. That was nothing like him. That's not what Jesus asks. Jesus says, who was a neighbor to the wounded man? You see the difference? Jesus says, who was the neighbor to the man who was in trouble? And the lawyer says, the one who showed mercy. That was the neighbor. So in a way, I'm so used to thinking of identifying with the person who showed mercy. And Jesus does say, go and do likewise. So I think we are supposed to identify with him. But when he asks the question, when you say, who is my neighbor is maybe the one who helps me. That it needs to go both ways. That my neighbor is anybody, and I need to help anybody, but also I need to accept help. And in some ways, that might even be harder sometimes. There was a study done a long time ago in the 1970s at Princeton that I read about this week. And the question was, would people nowadays stop and help like the Samaritan did? So it was in a seminary, and there were students who were asked to write a sermon on this text, on this particular parable. And they were going to go and present their sermon in a building a little bit across campus. And there would be people there evaluating them. And they were all in the classroom getting ready, or I don't know, maybe they were in different classrooms, but they were getting ready. And the situation was that some were told, oh, you're late. They're all ready for you. They're waiting for you. Get over there as quickly as you can. All right? And some were told, okay, they're going to be ready. As soon as you get there, it'll be time. So I think it's time to go ahead and go. And then a third group were told individually, you have quite a bit of time, but you might as well go, because if you wait there, then you'll be ready whenever they're ready for you. So some were like urgent time, I need to hurry, I'm already late. Some were like, I need to get there because it's time. And some were, I had a lot of time. And guess what they did? On the way, they planted a victim. So every one of these people walked by someone in need, in obvious distress, coughing, dressed poorly, whatever it was clear that this person needed help. And these people, on their way to, was that an accent to my sermon? Thank you. On their way to preach a sermon about the Samaritan who showed mercy, if they were in a big, big hurry, only 10% of them stopped to help that person. And the people who had a little bit more time, they needed to get there, but they weren't late. A bigger percentage of them stopped. And the ones who had quite a bit of time, more than the majority of them stopped to help. So, I mean, you can kind of see that. I can kind of see that. If I'm like going to be late, it is a little ironic that they were preaching a sermon about, the priest and the Levi that walked on by. But to me, it tells me that maybe it's important not to be in such a hurry. Maybe it's important to figure out, or even if I am, just to realize that there are other things more important than being on time. And actually, clearly, I have gotten that message. But actually, that makes it worse because I'm like, oh no, I'm late. So I think this is a beautiful story. And I think it's hard for us to imagine what it was for the people to hear this. Samaritans, that doesn't really mean much to us. So I'm not sure what we think about, who we think is the one that stopped. If you think about somebody that you really don't respect, or somebody that you're afraid of, or somebody you think is a terrorist, or whatever, and that's the person who is the neighbor. That's the person that Jesus is lifting up. That's the person that we are expected to accept help from, if that comes to that. I think we need to not be in such a hurry, or even if we are, to realize there are more important things. And I think we need to expand our idea about who is my neighbor, who is worthy of being here, who is worthy of taking up space in this world with me. According to Jesus, it's everybody, even those we don't want to be with, don't think we want to be with.